Good evening. Welcome to the regularly scheduled Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting for Monday, April the 9th. We welcome all those that are in attendance this evening. We also welcome those that are watching at home on TV or streaming as well. Just a few highlights about our meeting this evening. Relatively short agenda this evening. There has been some movement. We will address that during the setting of the agenda. I will make a general statement and announcement. Item 13, Ordinance 2018-5, rezoning of the Reeves-Schaefer property, 3258 Forest Hill Irene Road and 9190 Winding Oak Way from C1 Neighborhood Commercial and RE1 Residential Estate to R Residential Zoning, third and final reading, will be removed from the agenda this evening by the request of the applicant. And that will allow the applicant and others in the neighborhood to work in concurrence and maybe come together in some form of compromise. I wanted to make that announcement because maybe several people might be here for that particular item, so that will not be heard this evening. Again, item 13 will not be heard this evening. As I mentioned, we'll set the agenda in short order this evening. Public Works Director Bo Mills will lead us in the invocation. Alderman John Barzizza will lead us in the pledge. Please rise.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we do thank you for a beautiful day this day. If you saw the sunrise this morning, you saw the majesty of our God. We just thank you for this hallowed place we are today, this great city that we have. Just ask, Lord, that your presence would be with us, that the staff that makes their presentations will find the strength that they need. And as our Board of Mayor and Aldermen deliberate today, Lord, that you'd give them your wisdom. We just ask, Lord, that you'd lift up those that are lowly and needy and that we would see them and put them in front of us as something for us to see to. We just pray these things in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We have an item on the agenda known as Citizens to be Heard. If you would like to speak to the board this evening, that comes in item number 8. We have forms to be filled out that are out front in People Street. If you fill one out completely with name, address, your topic, signature, and read the guidelines as well, you can turn those in to our city clerk that sits here just below us, and we will recognize you on that particular spot on the agenda. The board meets each and every Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting in executive session at 5:30 prior to the regularly scheduled meeting. At that time, the board goes over the agenda in detail, item by item, consent agenda and regular agenda. It also sets the agenda or discusses setting the agenda. We'll set the agenda at this particular time. During executive session, a few items were requested to be moved in assorted places. Item 10A on the consent agenda, change order number 1, library streetscape enhancement and site improvements. It was requested by the board for that item to be deferred. Administration concurs with that request, so that item will be deferred. That'll leave 10A unoccupied, but it's still a placeholder for that item. Item 11, resolution number 18R10, authorization and assurance of match local parks and recreation fund grant. The board agreed that that could be placed on consent agenda. That item will now be item 10F on the consent agenda. And as I previously mentioned before the meeting, as the meeting started, item 13 was requested by the applicant to be removed from the agenda this evening. Any questions on setting the agenda? Is there a motion to set the agenda as modified during the executive session and currently modified just now?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mayor, I actually was wondering if we might add a bit of a discussion to the agenda about the Reeves-Schaefer property. We don't have to take any action on it tonight, but I think based on some of the information that's come forward, the board really needs to consider whether or not we should take some steps to rescind our previous 2 votes and send this issue back to the subcommittee and Planning Commission to reconsider.
You can make an amendment if you like to add item 13 to the back to the agenda.
I'm not asking to add the item 13. I'm asking to add a discussion about whether or not the board should rescind our previous 2 votes and have this issue reconsidered by the Planning Commission.
I don't believe the applicant is here this evening. Is the applicant here this evening that applied for item 13?
No, and Mayor, if I might add, the reason this item is not on the agenda tonight is at the request not only of the applicant through his attorneys, but also the neighbors through their attorneys. And based upon that request, we shared with them that no action would be taken tonight with regard to that agenda item.
I'm okay not taking any action.
Well,
I'm just wanting to have the discussion.
Well, but I expect that they were under the impression that there wouldn't be discussion or conversation about the agenda item at all without them being present. And if you want to take something up, I would recommend that it be at another meeting so that they could at least be given the opportunity to hear and perhaps participate in whatever the discussion might be.
I'm willing to defer to your advice, so that's fine.
Thank you, Alderman. There was properly moved and motioned and seconded to accept the consent agenda as modified. Please call the roll.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
The agenda has been set for this evening. We move to item 5, approval of the minutes from March 26, 2018. There were no modifications, corrections, or adjustments in executive session. Are there any at this time? Is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented to the public?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
March 26 minutes have been approved as presented. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda, special recognition. We have 3 items tonight. 2 are education-related. Education Commission Teacher of the Month for April and the Education Commission Youth Excellence Award. Vice Mayor Mary Ann Gibson is the Alderman liaison to the Education Commission and will lead us in those presentations. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. If members of the Education Commission would come forward, I see Chairman Mindy Fisher, Scott Williams, and Mr. Stephen Chandler. And if our Mr. Spencer Nesbitt could come forward as well, our April 2018 Teacher of the Month. It is an honor for the Germantown Education Commission to present the 2018 April Teacher of the Month Award to Mr. Spencer Nesbitt. Mr. Nesbitt has been the Houston Middle School Band Director for the past 4 years, in addition to teaching several classes of band students daily, including a class of 60 brand new players, the most in the history of the school. Mr. Nesbitt works tirelessly after school with the 7th and 8th grade band, the Color Guard, the new clarinet ensemble and percussion club, and band karate, an extracurricular class for new players in the 6th grade. He also conducts regular outreach programs at Dogwood and Farmington Elementary aimed at capturing the musical interest of elementary students. The recent Try On an Instrument Night for elementary students was a tremendous success and was a result of Mr. Nesbitt's work in securing a grant from the Germantown Performing Arts Center. Mr. Nesbitt also works individually with players to prepare for all state band tryouts and community performances and events. On top of all this, Mr. Nesbitt is a professional trumpet player who performs in several community music groups, including the Germantown Symphony. All his hard work has produced results. Houston Middle has had more students selected for the All West Tennessee Band than any other school in all of West Tennessee. That's a huge accomplishment. Parents have noticed this too. Several band parents reported to the commission that Mr. Nesvik has helped their students grow and develop not only their musical talents, but also their drive to excel through hard work and their passion for music. It is clear that Mr. Nesvik has elevated the stature of the Houston Middle Band Program and the Germantown Municipal School District's overall music education program. Mr. Nesvik, please accept our appreciation for your commitment to Germantown students and to excellence every day. Your award is sponsored by Principal Toyota. And if I could ask for Mr. Bo Cotton to come forward, please. The April 2018 Youth Excellence Award is presented to Robin Bo Cotton, a senior at Houston High School. Bo was described at the commission as a caring and friendly student with an unselfish and positive outlook. Bo is currently ranked in the top 10% of a very competitive senior class at Houston High and is a member of the 30-plus ACT Club, having scored a 30 or above on the ACT College Entrance Exam. Bo is enrolled in many honors and AP courses and is a member of the National Honor Society and the National Beta Club. In addition to excelling in academics, Bo is a 4-year member of the Varsity Honors Band and the All-West Tennessee Band. He leads the trombone choir and is the trombone section leader, which necessitates many hours of service on top of practice time. It is clear that Bo has a strong work ethic. One of his teachers reported to the commission that Bo is a strong example of students who take responsibility for their own education. On top of his scholastic and extracurricular achievements, Bo is very active in his church, Germantown Presbyterian. I'm not sure if anyone read the wonderful article about Bo finding some historic artifacts recently, so well done. He was recently selected by the congregation as a junior elder. There he volunteers in the church's children's programs and for Vacation Bible School in the summer. Additionally, Bo volunteers for numerous other community organizations, including Burrito Ministry, SOS Ministry, and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Bo is also a small business owner, having operated a mobile car detailing service for the past 3 years. Upon graduation from Houston High, Bo plans to attend the University of Mississippi with hopes to attend medical school thereafter. In recognition of his commitment to leadership, academic excellence, and service to his community, the Germantown Education Commission, sponsored by Principal Toyota as well, is proud to present Robin Bo Cotton with the April 2018 Germantown Youth Excellence Award.
We join in the congratulations from the Board of Merit Aldermen with Mr. Nesvik. I really want to find out more about this band karate. It sounds like a lot of fun. And Bo, we look forward to your senior project that we read about in the newspaper. And so we look forward to reviewing that and reading it. So congratulations to both gentlemen this evening. At this time, I'd like to ask Emma Johnson-Day to come forward. Emma, just come in front of the podium and let the crowd see you. I'm going to read a proclamation on your accomplishments as well and present that to you this evening. A city proclamation. Whereas the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards were created in 1995 by Prudential Financial in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals to emphasize the importance our nation places on service to others and to encourage all young Americans to contribute to their communities. And whereas recognizing young volunteers and encouraging others to follow their example is the aim of this nationwide program. Its aim is to reach into every community in all 50 states and the District of Columbia to identify and honor these unsung heroes locally, state by state, and then nationally in the hopes that their recognition will serve to stimulate others to volunteer service. And whereas Germantown resident Emma Johnson, a senior at Evangelical Christian School, has been honored as a distinguished finalist in this year's program, exemplifying the value of volunteer community service and being a role model to other youth as well as adults in our community. And whereas Emma coordinated a Feed My Starving Children meal packing event in our community, raising $22,000 and recruiting nearly 500 volunteers to pack 106,000 meals, enough to feed hundreds of children a daily meal for a year. Emma was determined to bring a food packing event to her community after participating in one in 7th grade. Now, therefore, I, Mike Palazzolo, Mayor of the City of Germantown, do hereby proclaim Monday, April 9th, 2018, as Emma Johnson Day. Well, after reading Emma's accomplishment and recently the City of Germantown launched volunteergermantown.com to coincide with our citizen-led initiative of being a community of kindness, I think we just saw that exemplified over and over again by the accomplishments of Emma this evening. Brings us to item number 7 on the agenda this evening, Alderman Liaison Reports. We move from position 1 to position 5. Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. The Senior Advisory Commission Spring Seminar will be held this Thursday, April 12th at the Pickering Center, featuring Laura Pate, Manager and Program Director of Education for the Alzheimer's Association Mid-South Chapter. The workshop seminar will start, doors open at 9:30, with the seminar starting at 10, and it'll run to 11:30. The presentation will, as I said, the presentation will start at 10. Box lunches will be provided. Reservations can be made by calling Parks and Recreation at 757-7375. The Historic Commission met on March the 27th. We discussed the cleanup of the McVeigh Road Cemetery. And quite frankly, last Saturday was the first day, and the weather stopped the cleanup. They also discussed the refurbishing of several historical markers in the community, and also started talking more about the World War I remembrance slated for November 11, 2018. The Economic and Development Commission met on April the 5th. Special guest was Reed Dolberger from EDGE. He discussed Graceland versus the Grizzlies issue on the arena at Graceland that has been proposed. He mentioned also that the small industrial projects in the area are definitely on the rise, but nothing of any major significance as far as large projects. Mr. Ross reported on the city's commercial districts. Of note, MAA will be moving in Trevere later this month. The hotel in the development is delayed due to the weather by at least 60 days. He also mentioned sales taxes have trended well above expectations, and that also that the Campbell's Clinic groundbreaking will take place on April the 24th. Back on March the 17th, the Commission met in retreat to start discussions on having the Commission be more proactive in the city and getting more engagement in the community. The Commissioners will be ambassadors calling upon local businesses to get their feedback, as well as spreading goodwill within our commercial citizens. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman. Vice Mayor Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor. The Germantown Education Commission is preparing for the Education Celebration on Thursday, April 26th here at City Hall. Our keynote speaker will be Mr. Paul Chandler with the Germantown Performing Arts Center. We invite the community to be our guest as education is celebrated in Germantown with the awarding of the Student, New Teacher, and the Marjorie Reapy Teacher of the Year Awards. The Board of Zoning Appeals will meet tomorrow at 5:30 for executive session and 6 p.m. for their regular board meeting. And if I could, regarding the West Tennessee Veterans Home, I wanted to thank one of our landmark businesses, Walker Taylor and the Germantown Commissary, for graciously donating a portion of their sales to the West Tennessee Veterans Home. Their contribution will go directly toward the citizen-led capital campaign to match the city's grant issued back in November. We've got several other Germantown restaurants who are also excited to do their part for veterans, and once those dates are finalized for those give back nights, those will be listed on the city's calendar. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Alderman Massey.
On April 2nd, the Public Safety Education Commission met, and then on April 5th, the Environmental Commission met. And I just want to remind everybody of the April 21st Amnesty Day. It's going to be 7:30 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. This is where you can bring in things like building materials, fencing, wire, steel poles, up to 4 tires without rims, concrete, dirt, rocks, lawnmowers, bikes and grills, and scrap metal. And our goal is to recycle those materials. At Johnson Road Park this year, you're going to be able to shred and recycle up to 2 banker's boxes of personal documents and recycle electronic equipment. Cell phones, printers, computers, copy and fax machines, and 1 television and computer monitor per household will be accepted. There are no hazardous wastes such as paint, chemicals, and medical waste that will be accepted. So this will occur at the Public Works Complex at 7700 Southern Avenue and at Johnson Road Park, located at 2970 Johnson Road. Mr. Mills, do you want to add anything to that? Okay. Are we going to be accepting anything at one of the other locations that we're not at the other?
The only place for shredding and electronics is at Johnson Road.
But no other modification? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Owens.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission met on April 3rd and approved a parking deck with 50 additional spaces for Saddle Creek South. The Parks and Recreation Commission approved the site plan for the Farmington Park project at the March meeting after changes were made based on public review and comment. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we are having the ribbon cutting and inaugural ride for the Germantown Bike Share program that's going to be kicked off on April 19th. And shortly thereafter, residents will be able to rent bicycles from the Germantown Athletic Club and at the Greenway for ride and pleasure in riding the Greenway. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Yonda.
Thank you, Mayor. We had the Financial Advisory Commission. We continue with the budget process, dealing with the capital improvements throughout the city. This last meeting, the general government, major roads, intersections, including signal upgrades and safe routes to schools, drainage problems, the parks, Germantown Athletic Club, and utilities. All these items passed unanimously by the Citizen Financial Advisory Commission and were recommended for approval to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen when the time comes. Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Thank you, Alderman. And from the Mayor's office, just a few quick items. I'd like to thank, on behalf of Germantown Police Department, Germantown Fire, and Germantown EMS, I'd like to thank the Germantown Community Theater for hosting the inaugural First Responders Evening, and what a great success that was. Sold out house, so please accept our thanks and get that back to your guys for coming as well. Also, I'd like to remind the community that we have Kiwanis Pancake Day is next Saturday. That is April the 14th from 7 a.m. to noon, and they will feed you as much pancakes and sausage, coffee and milk that you could ever expect to eat for $5. I would like to recognize Paul Chandler and his wonderful crew for putting on probably one of the best GPAC galas in recent memory. Sold out evening on Saturday night with a lot of money raised for GPAC as well. So job well done. Please share that with your board and with the Guild as well and all of your sponsors. And it was alluded to earlier, sales tax collection continues to really hum in the city. Our March figures are 20% over budget. We collected $131,000 more than anticipated. So good job, Germantown, continuing to shop and dine local. It does add up and pays off. And last but not least, We celebrate a very special work anniversary this week. We have an employee that's been with us for 30 quality and very memorable years. Some of the highlights of his career include being chosen as the Tennessee Municipal League City Manager of the Year in 1996, the American Society for Public Administration Mid-South Chapter Administrator of the Year in 1997. He's a member of the International City-County Management Association, Tennessee City Management Association, the ICMA Performance Management Advisory Committee. He's also responsible for bringing the City of Germantown the TNCPE Award of Excellence. He serves on our Germantown Performing Arts Board, Leadership Germantown Board, past president of the Tennessee City Managers Association, past president of the Tennessee Personnel Management Association, past treasurer of the Mid-South ASPA. He is the father of 3 and the grandfather of 3+. And at one time in his career, he was referred to as boy genius. Now he's just genius. Thank you, Patrick, for 30 years of great service. Any other remarks? Alderman Owens.
Yeah, I'll like to say, Patrick, wow, you're old. I guess I have maybe one of the unique privileges of having worked beside you as a staff member and then also in this capacity that we are within right now. And I mean, it sounds hollow or maybe understatement of the year to say that the city would not be where we are without your leadership throughout these many years and navigating waters rough and smooth. You've done a fantastic job and held it together with class, and I've got a great deal of respect for you, and I thank you for your hard work.
Well stated. Anybody else? Very well. It takes us to item 8 on the agenda, citizens to be heard. We had some sheets come forward. I will read the guidelines to the audience. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen welcomes comments from citizens and offers the agenda item known as citizens to be heard at each meeting. To participate, you please provide the information requested, turn that into the city clerk, which you have done, the folks that will be speaking tonight. Citizens to be heard is designed to gain input from the public and not for immediate responses by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. The intent of this agenda item is to provide the public a platform to be thoughtfully heard and not for a forum for dialogue, discussion, or verbal exchange with the board. While the board cannot assure each speaker of a specific or individualized future response, the board will consider the public comments and any supporting materials provided by the speaker. Public comments should be limited to 3 minutes per resident. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the city, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, hearsay, make defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. The presiding board chair shall have sole authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to board rules. And I would ask this evening, and I will make this at the beginning of each person who comes forward, we will not accept applause after comments. I will warn the community and the folks in attendance that I'll give you 2 warnings, and if necessary, we'll clear chambers. Miss Jamie Puchinko, I probably did not pronounce that correctly. If you're here, would you come forward and state your name and address for the record? You'll have 3 minutes to make your remarks to the board once you have given your name and address.
Turn your mic on.
Make sure your red button's on, and if you need to adjust your microphone, you can move it up.
Can you
or
hear
down.
me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Jamie Bakunko, 9318 South Romano Way, Germantown 38138. So I just want to start off by saying my original comments were regarding rezoning, and I know that that has been put off, hopefully indefinitely, but this is a topic that is not just concerning this area. I have a feeling it's going to come up again. It already came up in the Goodwin Farms development, all in the Forest Hill Heights area. I do want to start off by saying thank you for your service. As someone with a family with 2 kids under 3 and a full-time job, and I'm an HOA president, I understand that it takes a lot of your time, so I do appreciate it. So I promise I'm not always about negativity. I want to ask the board to again consider not finalizing the rezoning in the event that it comes back up again of the Schaefer Reeves property. And of course, you guys know about the covenant that was presented, and of course, I'm sure that that is a big portion of why it's not here today. Something about that, even if the covenant were not legal, I have to say I am concerned that its existence was withheld from the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, who have a responsibility to complete information about a project upon which they're voting. It would certainly have borne consideration, I would think, at the least, and you guys would have wanted to know about that at the onset. It's only fair to you to have all of the information in front of you. I just hope that better care in the future will be taken to provide voters, whether aldermen or commissioners or whatever, complete information regarding issues upon which you're voting, whether that information is perceived to have value or not. I'd like to also remind the board about the multiple citizens that have voiced repeated concerns opposing the increase in density in the area. For what seems to me, in our view, density's sake. In January, I presented a petition of over 2,500 voters. That was in less than 2 days that we got those numbers. And anecdotally, I hear, just walking out of my office tonight, I heard it again from people that I didn't even know knew what was going on. I just hope that y'all are really mindful of that and respectful of the wishes, because it does seem to fall on deaf ears. I know you guys have a plan, but I just don't think it's being heard by the masses, or the masses don't understand it. So maybe more education needs to be relayed to the public. And I'll just leave it with that.
Thank you. We appreciate that very much, your comments this evening. Laura Meanwell is the next speaker. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes once that's completed. Yep.
Good evening. My name is Laura Meanwell. My address is 8374 Silverthorne Cove here in Germantown. I'm here to speak in support of efforts to raise funds for the construction of the West Tennessee Veterans Home. I am privileged to be a member of the short-term task force working with leadership at the 501c3 organization behind this effort, aptly named the West Tennessee Veterans Home. And I was very excited to see information in one of the latest email blasts from the city about volunteer opportunities, which included this amazing project. I'd like to highlight some of the statements about this need. There are nearly 70,000 veterans in Shelby, Tipton, and Fayette counties. Let that number sink in a little bit. 70,000 in the Tri-County area. Nearly twice the population of our fair city, and yet the nearest facility for long-term care and rehabilitation services, specifically for veterans, is in Jackson, 90 miles away. Germantown is home to approximately 3,000 veterans, some of which I am sure are here with us tonight in the council chambers. I want to thank them for their service, and I want to thank you, the BMA, for voting unanimously in November to appropriate $50,000 towards this new facility to be dispersed when we, the citizenry, donate matching funds. These types of public-private partnerships are wonderful because it maximizes dollars while enabling every person to contribute and to have a hand in creating something wonderful and meeting a great need. As Vice Mayor Gibson mentioned, we have a number of restaurant fundraisers going on, but I believe the initiative that will have the greatest impact is Project 100. Here we challenge individuals, businesses, community leaders, neighborhoods, and other social and civic groups to contribute $100. You do the math. Just 500 groups or individuals contributing $100 or 250 donating $200, we can very easily reach our goal of $50,000 in matching funds. So I encourage everyone here this evening, those streaming from home and those who will watch this at work tomorrow, just kidding, to go to our website, www.veterans-home.com, or pick up a brochure, they're sitting out in the front, to learn more about this project and hopefully to become part of the solution. They earned it, help build it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Meadwell. I'll commit to a match. Put me down, whoever send me something. Next speaker, Phil Connor, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes.
Phil Connor, 3664 Crestwind Drive, Germantown, 38138. I'm here tonight to apologize to Mr. Lawton. It's ironic he was honored tonight for his 30 years of service, but I need to apologize for something I did 2 weeks ago, and that is I made a mistake attributing an email to Mr. Lawton that he did not send, and I want to make that clear for the record that he did not send, and I apologize to him for that. I'm aware of some emails that have crossed in the past few days or recently, none of which accuse me of any wrongdoing and that sort of thing, and there was plenty of opportunity to do so. But I would like to ask this. Things can be contentious at times, and don't let a mistake that I made make things more contentious. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connor, and I personally appreciate your gesture, sir. Next speaker, I think it's Ted Pippin, but it may not be. It may be Fred. Is Mr. Pippin here? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
I'm Ted Pippin, and I live at 3569 Crestwind Drive in Germantown. And I'd like my comments to be made a permanent part of the record. 2 weeks ago, I asked the board and mentioned to the board that I had not seen a cost-benefit analysis concerning properties that are being rezoned and considering to be rezoned. And since then, I've read in the press that a commission was, a study was ordered by this group, and a significant amount of money was spent for that of public funds. And to my knowledge, I have not seen published the results of that cost-benefit study. And if those were purchased with public records, that study should be dispersed to the public so that the public can review it and make comments on it. So I would ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker will be Bella Taylor. If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
Hi, I'm Bella Taylor, and I live at 33494 Salarine Road, and I want my comments to go on the record, please. All right, when I was 4, my family and I moved to Schilling Farms. Across from our house, there were 2 huge grassy fields. Often, my family and I crossed the street for me to fly my kite. We would have picnics with our family or just run around. As time went on, developers cleared all the fields for not 1, not 2, but 3 apartment complexes. I was devastated. I didn't really have a yard, being that it was a 0 lot, and even though it was a corner lot, with 2 large dogs and being 1 of 2 children, we were very cramped. This was one of the reasons why we moved to Germantown. That type of home was not for growing families because there was no room. We moved to Germantown in October, and I was thrilled when I realized I would have more than an acre to explore. I would hate for other children to feel as if they didn't have room to play and would have to stare at an ugly water tower in their near future. Mr. Mayor and Aldermen, I would like to ask you to turn around and look at the emblem behind you. When I came to the last meeting, I noticed that the emblem above you has fields, horses, and trees. If you undergo this construction, you might as well change it to cramped city buildings, water towers, and confined parking lots. I honestly think that the school and even the widening of the roads is a good idea. But the 0 lot homes and the numerous apartment complexes and the looming water tower won't do. I want to acknowledge the man who came up at the last meeting and asked if anyone up there lived in Germantown. And no one seemed to have raised their hands. I don't really know the rules for aldermen or the mayor, but if I made the rules, I would at least say that they would have to live in the area that they are representing. And if they couldn't, then they should have to listen to those who did. Since I was young, I was taught to be honest, and I would assume that you were as well. So why are you hiding the details of this smart growth? The citizens in this area have the right to the information involving their community. I've come to understand that only a few residents of the Forest Hollow area knew that the details about the developments to come. Strategically, it was quietly and quickly moved along to benefit the developers and not the citizens. That is just deceptive, and I'm appalled. Quite frankly, being a preteen, very little appalls me. But you were able to achieve that feat. I know that I didn't prepare a long speech, but I feel like this says enough. I really only need you to hear a few words. Inform the community, listen to the community, and help the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Danielle Taylor, please come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak once you state your name and address for the record.
My name is Danielle Taylor. I live at 3349 Forest Hill Irene Road, and I too would like this to go on record. As a director of an amazing program for young children and phenomenal educators, I face quite a few challenging decisions on a multitude of levels on a daily basis. Decisions on critical issues that leave me sleepless some nights. Issues that in the beginning seem too difficult to decide on. In the end, I always find myself at this question: what is right for children? The answer always becomes clear, and once I find my feet there, I know what to do. We are not your children, but we are your community of citizens looking to you, watching and learning about the needs of our community and learning who shares our values and who deserves to be in the seat in the future. These are my children, Bella and Jack. They are too young to vote, but as all children do, they watch, absorb, and form their adult character based on their environment. Please be an example by teaching them the honest side of politics, the side where they can see elected officials listening to the cries of their citizens and acting in a way that is not led by greed but by integrity. Please teach my children that it's good to preserve nature and not slash the natural beauty and wildlife in the name of generating revenue. Our children will grow and move on for higher education opportunities, but isn't it our ultimate goal for them to return home to invest in the city that they grew up in? The only way we can do that is to show them that they have a voice in their community, that they can make a difference, and that their concerns will not fall on deaf ears. Jack and Bella, as parents, we constantly encourage you to live with honesty, integrity, to be humble, modest, not dabble in greed, gossip, or cruel behaviors. My hope for the both of you today is that you grow from this experience, become enlightened, and one day come back to Germantown and emulate the positive behaviors that you see here today and rise above the negative ones. Take the seats before you and fight for your community, and never forget that it's always the right time to do the right thing. I will close with this. I beg of you as a mother, a wife, a program director of young children that will have to live with your decision for their future Germantown. When and if this comes to vote, please vote in favor of the people in this community. Isn't that why you took the seat? When you lay your head down tonight, I want you to be able to say, I did what was right for the citizens of the Forest Hill area. Trust me, if you can find your feet there, it may just be the most restful night's sleep you've had in quite some time. And please remember, it's always the right time to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. We appreciate all the citizens that came forward to speak for citizens to be heard. That's all the sheets we had this evening, so that concludes item 8 on the agenda. Now we move to item 9, resolution number 18R11, a resolution regarding realignment of Germantown Road and extension of Forest Hill Irene Road north of Wolf River Boulevard. I'll go ahead and read the resolution to the public and into the record this evening. A resolution regarding realignment of Germantown Road and extension of Forest Hill Irene Road north of Wolf River Boulevard. Whereas the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, unanimous in its opinion that the realignment of Germantown Road and the extension of Forest Hill Irene Road north of Wolf River Boulevard would be inconsistent with the long-standing commitment of the Board to the preservation of the character of the commercial and residential districts of the city when addressing the need for safe and efficient movement of traffic through and around the city. And therefore, such realignment or extension should not and will not be implemented by the Board. And whereas the laws of the state of Tennessee vest solely in the legislative bodies of municipalities, in this case the Board, the right and power to make all decisions with respect to the expenditure of funds of municipalities, and whereas on January 13th, 2016, the city did not apply for any funding for the Germantown Road realignment from the Memphis Metropolitan Planning Organization for the 2017 through 2020 Transportation Improvements Program. And whereas on January 29th, 2016, at the Board of Mayor and Aldermen retreat, the Germantown Road realignment was removed from any future capital improvements plan. And whereas on February 3rd, 2016, the city engineer provided notice to the Metropolitan Planning Organization to remove the project from any remaining funding as part of the 2013 through 2016 Transportation Improvements Program. And whereas on August 25th, 2016, the Memphis Metropolitan Planning Organization adopted the 2017 through 2020 Transportation Improvement Program that removed the Germantown Road Realignment Project from any future funding, and whereas the board intends by the adoption of this resolution to make its opinion known to the citizens of Germantown. Now therefore be it resolved that any future realignment of Germantown Road in the extension of Forest Hill Irene Road northwardly across the Wolf River and the city's north boundary is inconsistent with the long-standing commitment of the board and should not and will not be implemented by the board, which has the sole authority with respect to the expenditure of funds. I requested that this be brought forward so that we could put a concluding finality to the road realignment and also bring back some of you that have been here for a long time remember that prior boards of mayor and aldermen really went on record stating that any connectivity or road or bridge over the Wolf River at Forest Hill Irene Road would not be in part of the long-standing commitment of our preservation of our residential character and also making sure it was not part of our road plan. That was adopted in 1994 by a board of mayor and aldermen at that time, and I thought it was good to reinforce that in 2018 as well. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 18R11, a resolution regarding realignment of Germantown Road and extension of Forest Hill Irene Road north of Wolf River Boulevard?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Unanimous, as it was written in the resolution. Very well. Let's move to the consent agenda. It's item 10 on your agenda. And as mentioned earlier, item 10A was deferred to a future meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Item 10B, donation, Germantown Community Library. Item 10C, purchase fire station alerting system annual maintenance. Item 10D, purchase Musco LED sports lighting and controls. Item 10E, purchase installation water treatment plant SCADA system upgrade. Item 10F, resolution number 18R10, authorization and assurance of match local parks and recreation fund grant. The consent agenda was thoroughly reviewed in executive session and of course was modified. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as modified?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
Yes.
Consent agenda has been approved. That brings us to, as we mentioned, item 11 was moved to consent. That brings us to item 12, development agreement number 510, Chapel Cove, Phase 2. Mr. Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Development contract number 510 is for Chapel Cove Residential Subdivision Phase 2. This agenda includes the continued construction of the Chapel Cove subdivision and the development of the final 22 residential lots. This property, just as a little history and background, was annexed into Germantown in 1988 and was part of the Germantown Baptist Church property. Property was transferred from the Baptist Church to a Wilson Crossing Partners in October of 2016. There were a couple property transfers between October 2016 through March 13th, 2018, and the property ownership was transferred to Blue Communities. Wilson Partners, RDKK Holdings, and Blue Sky Communities are all under the same ownership. The original applicant to the Planning Commission, Wilson Crossing Partners, as well as the current owner, Blue Sky Communities, are joining in the development of this contract in front of you tonight. This continued development is for a subdivision that has received a couple variances along the way, including one for a cove that is longer than 2,240 feet and has 45 lots on a dead-end street. The final plan was also revised to include a 10-foot wide pedestrian path to Johnson Road Park. For Phase 2, it included increased lot depths for those lots that abut Devonshire Gardens and a 15-foot tree preservation easements for those abutting Devonshire Gardens. The original subdivision contract was approved by the board 509 in September of 2016. This does move the city closer to the Germantown Forward 2030 strategic objective, to the city experiencing positive trends and assessed value of residential areas by continuing to create opportunities for new residential developments and encourage improvements to existing homes, the result of which is higher home values, pride in ownership, new residents, and an increased value to both neighborhoods as well as the city of Germantown. Staff is open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Appreciate the presentation. Is there a motion to approve development contract number 510 for Chapel Cove Residential Subdivision Phase 2?
So moved.
Motion?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do.
Alderman Massey.
Mr. Ross, it says that the property was transferred to Blue Communities. Is Blue Communities the same entity as Blue Sky Communities? Was that a typo?
I do believe that's a typo. My apologies.
It's okay. The reason I ask is there's a Blue Sky Communities and a Blue Communities in Tampa, Florida that does some affordable housing, but I just don't know whether or not these entities are related. It looks like the ownership is listed here, so I wanted to clarify that Blue Communities is not different than Blue Sky Communities. And you don't think?
No, sir. The disclosures are provided as part of the agenda package, and so the ownerships are the same from Wilson Crossing Partners to Blue Sky Communities.
If we don't approve the variance tonight, will they just go back to the 30 lots? What is the consequence of us voting not to approve the variance, and instead of them having 45 homes going back to the 30 lots that were originally planned? But that's correct. They were approved for 30 lots, and now they're wanting an additional 15 through the variance?
No, sir. The variance was approved by Planning Commission back in 2016. This is just for the development contract for the remaining 22 lots. All the approvals have been in place since 2016. They just did the development in 2 phases. The original phase, Phase 1 of Chapel Cove, was approved by this board in September of 2017 for the initial 23 lots that were also part of the Vesta Home Show. Those have all sold, and now they want to move forward with the remaining 22 lots.
Okay, so what is the issue with the variance then, and what is the issue with the comments that were included in our packets that addressed the variance?
There is no issue with the variance. That's just background for you.
So tell me again exactly what we're voting on. That says it's showing a variance. I just want to make sure I understand.
You're voting on the development agreement so that they can move forward with the construction of the remaining 22 lots that were approved in 2016. The variance is there, as indicated in paragraph 2, that July 5th, 2016, the Planning Commission approved the site plans with the following subdivision variance. So it was approved in July of 2016.
Alderman, you and the mayor both serve on the Planning Commission. Are y'all comfortable with that?
I would just say, Cameron, was there not a, can you show us where the reason, if I recall correctly, and this comes from the subdivision regulations, that we didn't want to exceed a number of lots and the length of a cove is because of the fire apparatus. I think there was some concern about blockage in those streets. And I think Cameron has just pointed to that we have an access road or an easement that would provide that relief for fire trucks to get in there, if I'm not mistaken.
There is an access point from the Germantown Baptist Church parking lot that does break up the development, and that was essentially the break between Phase 1 and Phase 2. But the access was provided as part of Phase 1. This just shows Phase 2 development, and this area right here is the access road. If you visited the Vesta Home Show, you walked in on that access road from the Baptist Church parking lot.
Has the issue with the green space been resolved that that is discussed here?
That issue was resolved as part of the approvals in July. There's a 15-foot tree preservation easement that goes along with those properties that are backing up to Devonshire, as stated in the background.
And what was the conclusion of the Planning Commission with regard to the agreements that were being worked out with the residents in Devonshire Gardens?
That an easement was applied that would serve to preserve the trees during the development of the subdivision as it moved forward. And once those lots were sold, the care and other maintenance of the trees does transfer to the owners of those lots.
And is the road that's going in, is this a second road in Phase 2?
No, sir. No. As previously stated, the access point from the Germantown Baptist parking lot has already been constructed. The remainder of Phase 2 for Chapel Cove is the build out of 22 lots.
Can you show us how that works out on the diagram, please?
So the diagram shows the 22 lots from this access point here, moving northward to here, with the access point into Johnson Road Park at that point. The 10-foot sidewalk that would go into Johnson Road Park. Again, straight subdivision, average lot size is just over 15,000 square feet. Larger lots abutting the Devonshire Gardens plan unit development along with that 15-foot tree preservation area. So concessions were made. It still came in as a traditional subdivision. So it worked under Section 17 of the city's ordinance as well as Chapter 23.
Okay.
And connectivity to our greenway is
yes,
provided
sir.
by the developer to make that an amenity for the neighborhood and for the citizens of Germantown. Alderman?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ross, will that access to the church property, well, that won't be gated or locked or anything of that nature?
It will be locked, and it has a Knox box on it so that the fire department can access it quickly.
So the public will not be able to use it?
No, sir. The only time that it's been open to the public has been as part of the Vesta Home Show.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Yonda.
And these houses that are being built are going to be in the same price range as those that were built on the front side?
I
don't know.
I don't know.
I would suspect they will be.
It is our hope.
850 to $1 million or so, right on there. Thank you.
Just for clarification, what's on the screen is only Phase 2, since that's the item that's in front of you. Phase 1 looks the same. It's 23 lots. It's also long and linear as well. But you can see an entrance feature that comes off along with the boulevards that gets to the roundabout at this point, which is the midpoint of the subdivision, right by the access from Germantown Baptist Church.
Any other questions for staff? Alderman Barzizza.
One more thing in regards to that roundabout. Will it, and this might be for the chief, will that roundabout, will our equipment be able to go in there, go through that roundabout without any problem? Okay, very good. Even the new truck?
There were mountable curbs. There were modifications during the design portion of this that worked to make sure that the fire apparatus had enough room to maneuver, not only maneuver around it, but also to spread their wings and stabilize themselves.
Very good, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Please call the roll.
Alderman Yonda,
Yes.
Alderman Barziza,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Alderman Massey,
Yes.
Alderman Owens.
Yes.
Motion carries. As was mentioned earlier, item 13 was withdrawn by the applicant. We've reached the conclusion of our agenda. We are adjourned. You got stuff here? Or